Go home, go hard, go home. Touchdown like the end zone. When the circle turn to my home, can't get me out of my zone. Go hard, go home, go hard, go home. Yeah, these are championship rings on my hands now. In my head I'm top 10, yeah, that's hands down. You a squad, now you're looking man down. Funny how foes turn to friends now. Drive a race car like a Atari now. Call filling up, I need product again. Treat the business like a playground, might slide on you. Tell me what might slide on you. Do a backflip, cause I'm mad rich. I'm the definition of what that is. Go hard, go home, go hard, go hard, go home, go hard, go hard, go home, go hard, go home. Touchdown like the end zone. When the circle turn to my home, can't get me out of my zone. Go hard, go home.
Good evening, good evening, good evening.
Yes,
Welcome back, Longhorn Nation. We are big, we are loud, we are proud. We told you so, and now we are here. Texas beats Bama on Saturday in Tuscaloosa. 34-24, and we're here to talk all about it. But first, before we get started, let's talk a little bit about fanbattlesports.com. Fanbattlesports.com. Visit us on our website. We are brought to you by the Fan Battle Sports Podcast Network. Visit us on the website if you're a fan of any of the AFC South teams for any God-forgiven reason. Lots of content there, except for the Colts. Lots of content there. Articles, past shows. I've got little forums there, so please check us out at fanbattlesports.com. Also, please follow us on Twitter. We just hit the 100 follower mark just last week. Actually, as of this show, we are at 110 followers.
Yes,
so I want to thank you guys for your continued support. Hit us up on Fan Battle Sports at LH Fan Battle. And as you can see, I have two esteemed gentlemen sitting right next to me. Don't let me forget. First, I'd like to introduce, of course, you guys know Mr. Tim Wayne. Tim, how you doing tonight, man?
Man, I had a great weekend, so I'm really happy. My Cowboys won by 40, and my Longhorns win in the Tuscaloosa and handled business. So I'm good. I'm really, really good. I'm still riding high. It's Thursday, and I'm still riding high, baby.
Listen, I can't say that my NFL team rode high with me because that's definitely not the case. Yeah. Look, hey, listen, man, it's a young team. Anthony Richardson will figure it out. And you know what? If worse comes to worse, we won't have a 10th quarterback for the 10th straight year next year. So that's always good to know. For those of you who don't know, we have a special guest. Special for Tim and I because we've been fans of the Horn for years. Local Austin radio. I've been listening to local Austin radio since I was a kid. But tonight we've got a special guest, BK Brad Kellner. BK, how you doing tonight?
Oh, gentlemen, I am fantastic. I just gave y'all a couple of more followers on LH Fan Battle on Twitter/X, so I'll make sure to help y'all spread the word on that. But I am great, and I'll tell you what, fellas, I don't want to come in here ruffling feathers, but I think we need to change up the intro highlight package because I saw a highlight from last year's Bama game. I don't want to see that anymore. I want to see highlights from this year's Bama game because that one was a W. That's what we need.
That's the W. We will make sure we talk to our folks down here and we will get that updated. It's actually good. I mean, now that we're going through the season, we have some things to update that with, so we will make sure to update that video. Great call out. I didn't even think about that. That's definitely something we do need to do, and we'll get that taken care of. Before we get going, BK, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? You are the owner of Texas Unfiltered Sports. Tell us a little bit about, or Texas Sports Unfiltered, I apologize. Tell us a little bit about that and what you're trying to accomplish there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, and Texas Sports Unfiltered, we've been around for a little bit more than a month, and basically we are the modernized radio station, right? We are basically a sports talk radio station without the terrestrial radio dial because, well, not a lot of people are listening to the actual radio anymore.
Right.
So we've got a YouTube channel, Texas Sports Unfiltered. We've got an app as well. It's completely free. It's called Texas Sports Unfiltered. You can listen like that. We podcast all of our shows as well on Spotify and Apple Podcast. And, we've put together a really, really good team of some of people's favorite and some of my favorite Austin media personalities, guys like Bucky Godbolt, guys like Chip Brown and Kevin Dunn and Mike Harge and Trey Elling, just to name a few. And right now we are live and local every weekday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. with hopefully a few more additions coming to our lineup soon. So, yeah, we wanted to bring Texas fans the best content that they could possibly find in a modernized version that doesn't include 5 or 6 minute commercial breaks and that doesn't include the filtering of the FCC. So we love what we've got going so far, and I appreciate you guys giving me the chance to promote it a little bit. And yeah, Texas Sports Unfiltered. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. We'd love to have y'all on board.
Awesome. Well, yeah, please go follow Texas Sports Unfiltered at TS Unfiltered on Twitter /X. And also give BK here a follow at Brad Kellner down here in the ticker down there below. Give him a follow. Like we said, guys like Bucky Godbolt, guys we've been listening to since we were kids, growing up here in the local Austin media show, in the media network here. So give those guys a follow. Go check them out. Gentlemen, let's get started. Texas wins 34-24, and for what seemed like, for the most part, a really one-sided game, I guess, if you will. Texas dominates both sides of the line of scrimmage. Quinn Ewers really isn't pressure for most of that game. He goes 24 for 38, 349 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, no turnover. I think that's the big thing, no turnovers, right? Very clean game from the Longhorns, and they're rambunctious. From what I've been hearing all week, a wild crowd from folks that were there. Lights turning on and off. It was like a concert atmosphere. That's really the one big thing. What are some things that you guys noticed? And BK, we'll start here with you. What are some things you noticed as far as game notes, what you saw, and we'll start there.
Yeah, I think you talked about it. Texas played an incredibly clean, disciplined game, right? They looked like the home team while Alabama was making mistakes that you would expect a visiting team traveling into a crazy environment to make, right? Texas only had 4 penalties. Alabama had 10. Texas didn't turn the football over. Alabama had a couple of costly interceptions that led to a couple of Texas scores. I mean, the Longhorns have been a very clean football team through a couple of games, gentlemen. I know the first half against Rice wasn't great. I'm sure y'all talked about that last week. Every Texas fan talked about it. But still, even in that game, Texas only had 2 penalties before the fourth quarter. Once the backups came in, they picked up 3 more and got to 5 as a team. But when all the starters were in, Texas only had 2 penalties in that game. So for me, it's 6 penalties in 2 games, and it's 0 turnovers in 2 games. That is a clean brand of football, Tim, that we have not seen in a long time around Austin, Texas.
Yes, sir. That's right, BK. So one of the things that really, really stood out to me, and I mentioned it last week and mentioned it even last year with this matchup, is that Sark was able to get in and basically establish his command in the offense very, very early. I don't know if you guys realize this, but like one of the first plays in the game, it came out what kind of looked like a basic, a basic formation, and then just spread them out. And that was the one thing that I said that was going to be major, is that Sark is going to need to spread these guys out. Not saying that Texas couldn't do it from a 12 personnel or anything like that, but obviously there's a lot to cover. Again, you got AD, you got Xavier Worthy, you've got Jatavian Sanders, you got CJ Baxter. Spread these guys out. Let's get the ball into our playmakers' hands. Let's make these guys kind of look and make this defense have to talk to each other so they can try to figure out what it is that's going on. By the time you try to figure out what's going on, ball snapped, ball's out to CJ Baxter. First play is a first down. That was very, very telling to me. And that was one of the things that I noticed throughout the game. And that was done at an alarming rate. If you go back and look at how many plays that they ran within the first half, it was astounding. I want to say they got almost up to like 45, that 45, 50 range, just because they just kept moving the ball. Anytime you had an opportunity to get that first down, you could see they get right back to the huddle. Let's get these guys moving. Another thing, and I don't know if you guys realize this, there were no substitutions. So if you think about it, if Texas doesn't make the substitution, Bama can't make their substitutions. Okay. So as a big guy who's been on the defensive line before, you don't get the proper rest that you need. There's no coming in, getting a breather, getting back out there. You got to go. So and when you're going like that, it gets that pass rush. It kind of slows down a little bit, right? Your defensive backs, you kind of slow up a little bit. They're not running at 100% speed as if they were to, if they were able to get the proper breather. So I really, really like what Sark did, especially that first series. It was very, very tough.
You think about, and I think you already called it out, how Sark. I feel like Sark had it's almost, and one thing that I thought needed to change from last year to this year is Sark's ability to call a 60-minute game.
Right.
And I really feel like this is the first time we've seen Sark be able to call a 60-minute game.
Right.
The other thing is, I think they go 3 and out either 3 and out or they don't, or maybe a little bit after that, in that first drive, and you think, oh man, here we go, like it's going to be something. But no, I think he does a great job of getting them up and running. That next drive is, I think, as they get down there, they hit the field goal, and then they go up. Props to this offensive line for pushing around that Bama defensive line.
Right.
I thought, I'm going to jump into the game. DJ Campbell, I thought, was excellent. I thought DJ Campbell was amazing, especially if you talk about that closing drive where Jonathan Brooks gets the touchdown after the turnover.
Right.
You see DJ Campbell just rushing, two Bama defenders with him. So I just felt like that this is the first game that Texas has played under Sark where they played a great team game.
Right.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. And the thing that excited me the most when Texas hired Steve Sarkisian a couple of years ago was his ability to scheme guys open, right? We saw that at Bama. You think about that 2020 national championship team. You're watching and you're like, how the hell is Devontae Smith wide open on every play? Like, that guy's about to win the Heisman Trophy. Why is nobody guarding that dude?
Right.
And it wasn't because like defenses didn't want to guard him. It's like they just lost him. And we've seen that at times from Sark in the first 2 years, but it just felt like all game long, especially late in the third, early in the fourth quarter when Alabama took that lead. The very next drive, Texas gets the ball back, and in years past, oh man, Bama takes the lead, it's over. Like Texas, that's game over. And for most teams in Tuscaloosa, you let up a lead like that, that's over. You just can't get up off the mat from something like that. But like one of the first plays is that 50-yard pass to JT Sanders where he's just wide open. I mean, there's no one within 30 yards of him. And then the A.D. Mitchell touchdown later in that quarter. Like, there were just so many guys streaking wide open. And it's like, yes, I think part of it's personnel, because y'all know as well as I do, this is the best group of pass catchers that Sark has had at Texas and the best group that Texas has had in a while. But part of it is just Sark, I think, maturing as a head coach. He was able to win that battle of wits against Nick freaking Saban, the best coach in the history of college football. That was really cool. It finally felt like against a great team and a great coach, especially on the road, Sark was able to out-coach somebody, and he did that in a big, big way.
I think the other play that really stuck out to me was it was either like maybe it was like a little in route or like a little screen pass that went for a while, but the Jordan Whittington catch late in the game, where Jordan gets inside and then scoots it back out. I believe it was like for something ridiculous, like 30 yards. I thought that was a play that isn't talked about enough. I mean, this offense was great, just beginning to end, and it was fun to see. And it was, you could really feel like this team can score against anybody at any time, which is what we've been waiting for from this offense. We knew Sark had it in him, and I think we finally saw that. And I think it's the patience. It's hopefully This is a great sign of the patience, hopefully starting to pay off.
Yeah, I do have a question for you guys in regards to that. We've seen everything. We're talking about the offense and how Sark was able to scheme. Jatavian Sanders getting open through the middle. He's got 5 catches for over 100 yards. We've got multiple touchdowns of over 40 plus, over 30 plus yards. One of the things that I wanted to ask you guys about, and this is just being, Longhorn fans, is when was the last time that you seen a pass rush like this that played a full game? Ever. Like I will say it's been 10 plus years since I've seen a defensive line look that great. And I got to give more props. And we talked about this again last week, Harish, is that Anthony Hill Jr. looks like a stud. He is an absolute beast. This is what you go and you get these big recruits for. You give them an opportunity to shine, because if you look at what they did with Anthony Hill Jr., and I know this is going to sound a little crazy, but they utilized him kind of like they did Micah. He wasn't just in one spot. They moved him around. They gave him an opportunity to get to the pass rush. The defensive line was just flat out great. From top to bottom. Like, once you get the pressure like that with that defensive line, that makes it easier for your defensive backs to jump these routes. You don't have a quarterback that can pass really great. He is an absolute fantastic runner. That kid is going to be good when you give him time later on in the years to come. He's not going to be a bust. You could tell that he's a special kid. We didn't recruit him just because he wasn't special. He did things that most quarterbacks can't do nowadays. But you can tell that there's things that he needs to work on, and Saban will address it, right? It's the growing pains of having a freshman quarterback. So, with that being said, again, I just want to know when was the last time that you seen the Texas defensive line be as dominant from one quarter to the end? Like, because I can't think of a time where I saw a defensive line like that. I'm thinking maybe like around that time that Sergio Kendall was around, and that was a while ago. So, it was just so impressive to me. I'm always going to look at the offense and the defensive line. And one of the strengths was Alabama's, their offensive line was one of their biggest strengths, and their defensive line was one of their biggest strengths. And you could just tell that this was just a better group. Not to say that take anything away from Alabama, but just on that day, you could tell that Texas had just a better offensive line and they had a better defensive line, and that made the game. To me, that made the game. If you can't protect your quarterback, if you can't allow your quarterback to set his feet and throw properly and get the correct reads, you're not going to win the game. You have those special quarterbacks like a Caleb Williams that will run 60 yards from the line of scrimmage, run 30 yards back up and drop a dime, but that's not where Alabama is right now. Maybe in the future, but not currently right now.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it's probably been since 2009 where Texas has had similar talent to Alabama. And I think that 09 Bama team was more talented than Texas. Texas just had Colt McCoy, who overcame a lot of some of the other deficiencies that the Longhorns had on their roster that year. But it's been a long time since you've been able to say stuff like that, right? Especially on the lines of scrimmage, to where it's like, oh, shoot, like, no, we can hang with these guys. And it wasn't just, oh, we can hang with these guys. It's like, no, we're better than these guys. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, Texas's O-line was amazing, but the D-line being able to get pressure on a guy like Jalen Milroe, because y'all know it, dual threat quarterbacks have given Texas defenses fits in recent years. And they were able to keep that dude and it contained and turn him into a pocket passer, especially when they built that double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know the last time a Texas D-line, especially against a team like that, right? Like, they've looked good against, ULM and Rice and opponents like that. But against somebody anywhere close to as good as Alabama, let alone actually Alabama, it's been a long time since we've seen the defensive front dominate. And young guys, too, like Anthony Hill, obviously. But how about Ethan Burke?
Ethan Burke. I was going to say, Ethan Burke, I felt like was the best defensive lineman Texas had on Saturday.
Ethan Burke looks
Now,
fantastic.
the one thing I will give credit to PK on was how he used Anthony Hill at the beginning of the game as a spy. He started Anthony Hill off as a spy, and his only job was to look for Jalen Milroe.
Right.
And then, he puts him in key spots so that he's rushing. Again, I don't think we as a fan base give enough credit to PK how much he has grown as a defensive coordinator. If you look at the defense, and again, personnel plays a lot in a lot of these things that we're talking about today. But if you look at this defense when PK first took over versus where it is today, it's light years above what it used to be.
Right.
And yeah, sure. And then, of course, Gary Patterson comes in. And you're like, well, Gary Patterson effect. But Gary Patterson leaves, and I feel like this defense got even better.
Right.
Of course, it's only been 2 games. I don't want to overreact, but I feel like this team's gotten better.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, that was a big question going into this year. Is like, okay, Gary Patterson's no longer here. Does that mean the defense is going to resort back to year 1 PK defense, or is PK actually cut out for this? And so far through 2 games, it looks like he's cut out for this. I mean, that shouldn't surprise too many folks, right? Like, that guy was one of the best DCs in football for years at Washington. And you figured with a little bit of time, he'd be able to replicate that success down here in Austin. Obviously, year 1 sucked, but big improvement in year 2. And yeah, look, I only thought this defense had to be as good as it was last year for Texas to get to Arlington, right? Because I figured the offense would be better, and we all knew they needed to be better and more consistent this year.
Right.
But I'm like, hey, as long as the defense doesn't take a step back, this team's going to be fine. Well, if the defense got even better, which it looks like it might have, then watch out. That's a big part of why Texas is a top 5 team in the country right now.
Right. And we forget because we wanted more from the team as a whole. But, from that first year, they were ranked in the hundreds, like I think like 126 or something like that, or something like outstanding. Versus now, last year they jump up, they're in the top 30, and now we're looking at top 20, top 10 defense based on what we've seen within the last 2 weeks. I mean, it's leaps and bounds, like you said. You get your personnel in there, you develop the personnel that you got, which is one thing that we can say that has not necessarily been the case in the last 10 or 12 years, is that developing that talent that you have, because we've seen those guys leave, go to the next level and get all types of shine. There's plenty of that all over the place. You got Elliott out in Miami looking great. I mean, he had a phenomenal game. You got Quandre Diggs. You got players all over the place. So, it's just about getting and honing that talent that you got in right now. The fact that you were able to even add those freshmen and they were able to contribute from a freshman point, that makes it even better, right? That's the icing on the cake. You got 2 guys, on the defense that are studs. You can see them contributing and making big efforts within the game. So that's also a really big win for us.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts on this before we move on and we talk what's next? So there's a question that came in the chat, and I kind of pulled it up, and I was like, you know what, we should wait. So Kyle, I saw your question. I think it's very important. I think it's going to be addressed in this next topic here. So we can call it rat poison. We can call it the Kool-Aid. We can call it expectations. We can call it whatever we want.
I do want to, sorry to interrupt. I do want to talk about one more thing before we jump on this. As a person that's played football for a while outside of high school, college, whatever the case, one thing that was really, really, really important to me is to see how you react in adversity. I would say that third quarter was probably the best football I've seen in a while from the University of Texas. You go down, you start to run the ball, you convert on third downs, key third downs. You don't get rattled. You don't make the turnovers. You don't make the costly penalties. You just play it all around. Because for me, the third quarter is always, to me, the most important quarter. Because how are you going to come out? Are you going to come out flat? If you come out flat, which we've seen in the past and has been a thing, we've been a tale of 2 halves. We come out, we start very, very hard. We put up all these points. We look great. look like one of the best teams in the country, and then we come out flat. And that was one thing that did not happen. I like the fact that we continue to run the ball using more than one back. I cannot express how much, how ecstatic I am to see more than one tailback get some shine. It doesn't matter if it was a screen. It didn't matter if it was a draw, off tackle. It was the fact that he got those running backs in the mix. He kept them fresh, and he continued to be aggressive in the third quarter. And that's all I have to say about that.
No, absolutely. Again, we know we all think we know who the back will be at the end of the day, and it's probably this guy from Florida. But in the meantime, in between time, while he figures that out, I do like how Sark is utilizing Jaden Blue also, right?
Jaden Blue looked great.
That's another
Jaden Blue looked like the starting running back for the University of Texas last week. I just have to call it a spade. Yeah,
absolutely. So, very, very, very happy for what I've seen. But as we move forward, we know when you beat Alabama at home for the first time and basically forever, and I think in Nick Saban's career, the first time this is the most he's been beaten by at home since he's been at Alabama. I think the last time was South Carolina, 20-9, and that was like 2000. Can't remember when. Don't really care.
We were teenagers.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So with big wins comes big expectations, right? So,
absolutely.
Tim, I'm going to start with you this time. What does this win mean for you? And does this change your expectation for the season from what you had before?
What this means for me is, from a player standpoint, this should give you all the energy and the juice in the world.
Yep.
To let you know that you can literally line up with anybody, and when you play at your hardest and when you play at your best, you can literally line up with anybody in the country. From a coaching perspective, you have to play like that. You cannot take any days off. Now that you've beaten Alabama, we talked about it the very first episode we did. Texas is always going to be the hunted because it's the University of Texas. It's the brand. It's Austin. It's the lights. It's the celebrities. It's Matthew McConaughey. It's the Moody Center. It's the stadiums. It's the renovations. It's all of that wrapped into one, right? That's always going to be number one. You're the big brother in the state of Texas. Everybody else is second to none, right? Once you beat Alabama, that puts another mark on your back, right? Now people are like, oh, okay, so you guys you're not just Texas. Now you're Texas, but you're beating people. You're beating quality opponents, right? You're starting to get people to look the other way. People are not necessarily paying attention to you because they think you're back, but then they don't know that you're back. You had a couple of issues like BK mentioned earlier with Rice. Now all of a sudden you come in, you play a complete game. You have to play that way every single game. You can't let off the gas. All gas, no brakes is a perfect fitting for the University of Texas and what just happened. You have to keep your foot on the gas. Nobody is going to let up on you. Nobody's going to not give you their all now. Now that you've beat Alabama, you have to be consistent. Every single game. First half, second half, you have to go in with that mindset that we are going to put our foot on your throat no matter what, all game.
Yeah, expectations have absolutely changed, and the bar has been raised, right? If you would have asked a number of Texas fans going into the season if they would have signed up for, let's say, 10-2 and a Big 12 championship, I think the vast majority of the fan base would have said, yes, where do I sign?
Right.
Now, wouldn't that feel like a disappointment, fellas? 10 wins?
So. It would, wouldn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, so that's where we're at right now. It's like Texas is going to be favored in every game that it plays in. So if they lose 2 games out of the next 10, it'd be a little bit underwhelming. Like now the conversation goes from, all right, Big 12 champs, that's our goal. And of course, that's still a goal. Right. But now it's like, well, shoot, the playoff feels very attainable. And you can lose a game and still make the playoff, right? We saw it with TCU in this conference last year. Hell, they lost the most important game. They lost the conference title, but because they only had 1 L, they still got into the Final Four. You could have a mulligan. You would hate it. You want to run the table, of course. But like now it's like, it just feels like the narrative, not just here in Austin and amongst Longhorn Nation, like the national narrative is like, no, it's almost expected that Texas finds a way into the CFP this year.
If you look at a team, and Tim and I were talking about this pre-show, and if the way Texas played on Saturday is the same Texas we see the rest of the season, there's not a single team on the schedule I'm worried about. There is not a single team that will beat this Texas team if they played like they did on Saturday.
I think that's fair. I mean, BK, what do you think? Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other good teams, like Kansas State's good. Oklahoma's better. And we know, as everybody knows, anything can happen in that game, right? Like, there have obviously been years where Oklahoma was way better than Texas, and we somehow, some way found a way to get it done. So if you're just assuming that's an easy dub, that's probably a mistake. But no, the opponent that scares me the most for Texas is Texas. Like, this team beating itself is what worries me. They haven't done it. Once again, no turnovers through 2 games. Hardly any penalties. Like, they have done a great job of not shooting themselves in the foot. If they somehow reverse course and start killing themselves again, then that's where this thing becomes a problem. And then you worry about a couple of L's on the schedule.
I want to address this question here from Kyle. And Kyle, thank you for joining the show, commenting. We really appreciate it. So Texas looked phenomenal, but I have to ask the age-old question. Are we going to win the games that we're supposed to win? Trap games are real, and we might actually be talking about one here in a second. Trap games are real, and we are notorious for losing those. Thoughts on that? BK, I'll go with you this time first.
Yeah, look, that's a great question. I mean, that's obviously been a problem for Texas, right? Playing down to competition.
Exactly.
It's a huge issue, right? At the end of Mac, Charlie, Tom, Sark, it doesn't matter which coach you're talking about. Like, that has plagued the Longhorns throughout this abysmal run of non-refundable football that we've been forced to watch over the last decade and change. So I like to think that this team is different, right? Like, I don't think any of those teams go into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama. No. So I feel like this team is different, but obviously time will tell. Like, once again, they're going to be favored in every game that they play in. And I don't know how many of these lines will even be close, to be honest, guys.
No,
so,
I don't see those lines being anything close, honestly.
Yeah.
I just, again, it kind of goes back to you have to play at the level of consistency. We know you can do it. We know you have the talent to do it. It's been brought to you in full HD for the entire nation to see that you're capable of doing it. So now you have to go out and execute, right? Like, there's really, with this, the way they won, had it been a 3-point game, Texas wins with a field goal walk-off, okay, we know you got we know you can get in there and you can mix it up, but just the fashion in which they walked into Tuscaloosa and handled business from start to end, you set yourself up for this. You, as a team, you have set yourself up that say, hey, we can dance with the best of the best, and we can do what we need to do and handle our business and get out of here, whether it's at home or on the road. And again, it is really, really impressive to go into Tuscaloosa like that. They haven't lost to a team since what was it, ULM, and when Saban's first year. Like, that stuff like that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so when you have things like this that happens in this fashion, again, the expectations are high. And if I am, as a Texas Longhorns fan and as a person that loves the game of football, once you win like that, that should be the expectation from then on.
Yep.
Like, just as a team, like, we can hang with the best and we can play 4 quarters of football. So yeah, it should be that way. They should look at themselves and say, hey, we can handle this, and we're capable of doing it. So yeah, absolutely.
The one thing that and BK, it's funny that you mentioned. I actually had Texas going 10-2 and winning the Big 12 title. So thanks for guessing my prediction, because that's exactly what I had, and I would have been absolutely ecstatic with that. Here's the other thing: Tim and I both thought Texas was always going to beat Bama. Now we didn't think. Spoiler alert: my 2 losses that I had for Texas were Kansas State, TCU back to back. I don't know if that happens anymore, but I always expected Texas to win this game. I did not expect them to win the game in the fashion that they did.
Right.
And I think by stating that changes my expectation for Texas.
Absolutely.
My expectation is that they run the table. Like, it
Yeah.
sounds like a crazy expectation, but if that's the team that I see and that's the team that I get, again, you just never know with some of these games, right? We know how Red River is. Luckily, we don't go to Manhattan this year, but we have to go to Fort Worth. We haven't necessarily played TCU well ever.
Right.
And then we have to go to Fort Worth. So that's also, regardless of the talent on any of these teams, I feel like we played down to the talent of the Big 12. And I'm hoping that is not the case. But I do have I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm sipping the poison. I'm injecting it straight into the veins. I want this team, and if this is what I see every week, I do expect this team to run the table and get all the way to the playoff. Just based on what I saw, that is what that's again. I cannot unsee what I saw on Saturday.
It's a good thing. You don't want to unsee what you saw on Saturday.
I never want to unsee that, so I hope I don't have to.
I've watched that game 6 times, so I'm doing whatever I can to make sure that I don't unsee.
It is the new Texas OU on Longhorn Network. Like,
yeah. Now, let me ask you guys a question, and BK, I'll start with you. Is there anything in that game that was alarming to you that Texas needed to possibly improve on?
Yeah, there are a few things. It wasn't perfect. Drops still a problem, right? Xavier Worthy dropped the touchdown. Jonathan Brooks needs to get on the jugs machine. Like I love that guy, but we can't keep throwing him the football if he doesn't catch.
Right.
The fumbles, right? A few of those recovered them. But like, whatever the hell the QB sneak play was, that was
weird.
That was not good.
That's when you know it's your night, right, guys? Like if you're recovering that and getting a first down out of whatever the hell that was,
right?
Like that's when you know, hey, things might be going our way tonight. But like that's got to get cleaned up. Couple of coverage breakdowns. Sark talked about this on Monday, right? In that drive where right after Texas went up by 10. Or went up by 11, then Bama gets the touchdown and the 2-point conversion to cut it to 3. I mean, 2 huge plays, including that long touchdown where Texas defenders were tackling each other instead of tackling Nyblack, the Alabama tight end. And then red zone too. Like they had another Worthy drop. There was a 1st and goal from the 3. They had to settle for 3. They had a 1st and 10 from the 13. They had to settle for 3. Like a few things. Obviously, they beat Bama, so it's hard to be too critical. But there are definitely a few things that it's like, all right, no, for this team to really play at its full potential, they were close to it. Don't get me wrong, but for them to be like firing on all cylinders, they get those things right, then watch out.
It's funny that you mentioned the drops. Harish mentioned it in our pregame here. Had they made those catches, right, we're looking at maybe a 17-point win. Maybe more if they're able to continue to convert. So yeah, those are definitely some things that definitely need to be cleaned up. I don't know what necessarily happened with the drop in the end zone with Worthy. Definitely, when I saw that play forming, I was like, oh, this is automatic. This is what they do best, right? Like we know that Xavier Worthy can get open at any point in time, whether it be the long ball, whether it be just a slant. We've seen him do it. He's really, really good at creating space in small areas of the field. So when he dropped that, I was extremely shocked to see that. And the drops there were more drops than I would like to say. I would say even Jordan Whittington had a couple of drops that I was like, what's going on here? Some people blame it on ball placement or whatever, but it was still kind of alarming. But again, like you said, it's really hard to be critical when you win in that type of fashion. But there's definitely things that they can work on, within the next couple of weeks.
The Worthy drop was probably the most concerning to me. And the reason why I say that is, again, last year, broken hand, fine, whatever. But if that route that he runs, that route concept that he ran is the exact same route concept he ran against Tech last year in the red zone. It's probably the exact same play, honestly.
Yeah, it's an out route. He goes up about 3 or 5, and then he's out. The route he ran against Tech was a jet route. I mean, he goes in, he takes a stab, plants his foot, and he's out of there. Right. You don't really catch Xavier Worthy when he's got a full plan. He's got space out there to get open. So
the ball placement was excellent on that route.
I thought so too. I thought it was enough zip on the ball to get it out there. You know how I feel about Quinn and getting that ball out there. I do have a little bit of thing about him and his trajectory and how he gets the ball out really quick, but he was able to get the ball out with some mustard on it. So I was, that was a one thing that I looked at. I was like, that's something we can work on for sure.
Great.
All righty, fellas. Anything else when it comes to expectations? Are we missing anything? All right. Well, let me ask just real quick one yes or no question. Are you sipping the Kool-Aid? Yes or no, Tim?
I would say yes, for sure.
BK.
After what I just saw, absolutely.
That's a loaded question, Harish. Like, what do you mean? Am I sipping the Kool-Aid?
Are you sipping the orange Kool-Aid?
I'm sipping it. I'm not guzzling it. Like I'm not
Okay.
I'm not picking Texas to win the championship or anything like
No.
that.
I definitely expect them to get to a playoff
Getting to
now.
the playoffs.
Okay, so I'm not even there yet. So I guess
Okay,
I'm not
right.
sipping the Kool-Aid.
So what do you have to see to get to that point?
Exactly what Kyle said. Texas not play down to its competition. Until I see it, like I want to believe it's different. It should be different. But until I see it, I'm going to be worried about it. So like I had 9-3 in a Big 12 title going into the year. All right. Now, one of my losses was Alabama. I wasn't like, you guys are smarter than me. I didn't have that as a win. So now I'm at 10-2 with a Big 12 championship. So I still feel like, I hope I'm wrong. That should go without saying, but I'm still not quite ready to say that this is a playoff team just yet.
Okay. Yeah. That's fair.
Fair enough. All right. Well, let's talk about the first of those potential trap games. Wyoming comes to town. They will game at 7:00 Saturday night here at DKR. If you're in town, please go. There's supposed to be a light show that's never been seen before. The first time I think is what I'm hearing is the first time a brand new light show. So if you're able to go to the game, go check it out. This is a Wyoming team that has happily kept Tech from winning a game this year.
Right.
Of course, they go into Wyoming a couple weeks ago, right after Brett Yormark praises Tech, and then they lose to Wyoming in overtime, I believe, up there in Wyoming. Tim, give me a couple of things that you're looking for. Obviously, I'm looking at this as a trap game just simply because of what they were able to do against Tech. They are a gritty. They have a really gritty type team. Their quarterback is very. He's tough. He's a tough guy, right? He'll take some hits. He'll make some plays. He'll make some errant throws. So maybe there'll be some options, some more opportunity there for turnovers. Right. This guy's really gritty. So what are you seeing? What are you thinking? And do you see any potential ways that Texas plays down to their competition?
Okay, so for me, this is the only way, and this is going to actually be not from a player's perspective, but from a coaching perspective. Is are you going to continue to? Are you going to come out strong? Like, how strong are you going to come out? What I would like to see is I would like to see what I saw against Bama. I'd like to see them come out. I'd like to see them get a nice pace, punch them in the mouth, continue to punch them in the mouth. Not let up, not build a lead and then say, hey, we're going to sit back and we're going to let this. Like I said, you got to be consistent now. Like, this is no matter if it's Wyoming or Alabama, Tech, TCU, Kansas, whatever the case may be, you have to come out. You can't play stale. You can't come in and rein back on the game plan. You have to kind of open it up. Which was one thing that I told, and when we talked about it previous to the Rice game, was I mentioned, I was like, you're not going to see a bunch of flashy plays, right? They're going to play a very vanilla game. They're not going to open up the playbook until you get to Alabama. We saw that, but now I think you have to continue to maximize and to I guess really just kind of polish up on those plays that you've already had out there. I mean, people are gonna have tape on what you've done, so you have to just continue to make the proper adjustments. You can't really let up just because it's Wyoming. Obviously, you see what they did to Tech, and then it's not to take away anything from Tech. Tech has the talent. Tech has talent, and Tech is not an easy team that you can just waltz in and just beat. So we know they have some type of talent up there in Wyoming. So again, you just can't let up off the gas. You really have to play a complete game, and you can't ease up off of them. You have to end them early as possible and get the other guys in there, let them get the reps, and continue to be aggressive throughout that entire game.
Yeah, I want Saturday night to be a continuation of the party that started last Saturday night. And the best parties involve zero stress, right? You don't want to worry about the cops showing up, shutting you down. You don't want to have to worry about your ex-girlfriend showing up and ruining your night.
Right.
You don't want to have to worry about the party running out of booze.
Right.
No stress. That's what I want on Saturday night is no stress. Texas is a 30-point favorite now. It opened at 28. It's up to 30. It doesn't have to be more than 30, although a lot of folks out there in the desert, I'm sure, would prefer it to be that way.
Oh, of course.
But I don't want to stress on Saturday night. And that goes to what you're saying, Tim, about just stepping on the gas and keeping your foot off the gas, because that's where Tech screwed up. Or sorry, your Mark U, as I like to call him. That's where your Mark U messed up. They were up 17-0 in that game. And they're like, no, we're good. They stopped throwing the ball. They tried to run. Wyoming's got a pretty good run defense. And they let Wyoming get back in the game because they tapped the brakes a little bit. Like, you just do what you did. Be aggressive like you were in Tuscaloosa, and you do that with the talent edge that you have over Wyoming. This will be a fun party that no one's worrying about on Saturday night.
Exactly.
The one thing, I actually lost my train of thought, but it'll come back to me. I do agree. I'd like to see a lot of the same things that we saw in Bama last week. Just a continuation. Just another. It's just, if the backups get in, if Arch Manning plays on Saturday, I'll just let you know it's a good thing.
Absolutely.
And I really want to. Selfishly, I want to see some Arch Manning this weekend. I want to be able to see him get some snaps, just kind of get in there, do something a little bit more. I think it's a little bit of an opportunity before Big 12 play, before you go to maybe winless Waco next week. You get an opportunity to clean up some stuff, because I think next week is when, we all know this, next week is when the season starts. So this is really your last tune-up game, if you will, your last non-district game, your last non-conference game that you have before you start, before the real season starts. So I think it's really important that Texas comes out, they punch Wyoming in the mouth, put them down quickly, go sit on the bench, and like Brad said, we don't, stress-free, right? Go eat some hot dogs. Go, when you're like middle school, you guys are winning so bad, you go sit in the stands and eat hot dogs with your friends and stuff like that. That's what I want to see.
Right.
Obviously, I don't want them eating hot dogs and doing crazy stuff, but I see a renewed focus in this team, and this is what I wanted to do. I meant to call this out earlier. During today's press conference, Sark talked about how Quinn called a players-only meeting today. And normally when you call players only meetings, it's not a good thing. Like, it's not, it's usually not a good thing when you have those player only meetings. And the focus behind this was to get the team refocused, right? Hey guys, we had a party, we did our thing, but the job's not done. I think there's a renewed focus in Quinn. And I think that's going to go a long way in getting this team refocused this week and getting, avoiding what we call, the trap game. So I do think this team is, I think Quinn's taken a step as a leader on this team. And he's not this outspoken, he's not an extrovert, and he doesn't need to be, but he is that guy. There's always that one guy in a meeting that you sit in that doesn't say much, but when he says something, it means a lot. That's Quinn Ewers to me, and I think that's really important. So I think this team is refocused, and I think this team will take care of business.
Right. Not everybody needs a rah-rah type of guy. Your guy Tony Dungy, he's not a rah-rah type of guy, but when he talks, he listens. If that's what Quinn is doing, I'm more than happy with that. Just to again get everybody focused, get everybody reassured. Hey, listen, this week the party's over for this week. We need to go on. We need to focus on Wyoming, take care of business, get Wyoming out the way, and then we can get ready for conference play. I'm all for that. I think that is a really, really good a really good moment and a maturing moment for Quinn. You know, again, like you said, most of the time when those meetings are called, usually something catastrophic has happened, whether it be an embarrassing loss or what have you. You know, the fact that he's like trying to rein everybody in, get everybody refocused is really, really good.
Yeah. Eye test is going to matter, fellas. Like a
Oh,
win is
yeah.
a win is a win. Ultimately, we get that. But um, if Texas wins this game by 7, everyone's going to be like, well, we're going to lose a Big 12 game or two. Like
Right.
it's
Yeah.
the same old Texas. We're going to slip up a little bit. If
Right.
Texas wins this game by 5 touchdowns, it's like, oh, this
All
this is like
All
the
right.
05 team. This is like
Yeah,
the
for
09
real.
team.
Yeah.
Like, hold on, we're a little bit closer to that. So,
Right, right.
yeah, look, you get the win, you survive and advance. That's college football too, not just college basketball. But yeah, the eye test and the scoreboard, I think, will just change a lot of people's opinions on what Big 12 play is going to look like.
Absolutely. Any final? Oh, what I was going to ask, BK, do you know of? Have you watched any tape or you heard anything? Who are some key players? Andrew Paisley, who's the quarterback for Wyoming, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception on the season. Obviously, they beat Tech at home, and then they beat Portland State last week. Actually, not comfortably, the 31-17, I believe. Who are some folks that we should be watching for on this team? Offensively and talk about matchups offensively and defensively.
Yeah, everybody knows about Andrew Peasley, right? He was the hero for that game against Texas Tech. He's not a great thrower of the football, but he can pick up a few yards with his legs. And like y'all said, he's tough as nails. It's his 6th year of college football. It's one of those COVID dudes. Was at Utah State for a while. It's his 2nd year at Wyoming, but he's been there, done that. They're getting a new running back, a guy who transferred in from Northern Illinois, who they're super excited about, Harrison Whaley, who's making his season debut. So they're thinking he's going to be the bell cow. They've got the first 2 games, they've had like a 5'7" guy and a 6'2", 240 guy. So your stereotypical thunder and lightning kind of bit.
Man.
That's what they've been bringing to the table. Their defense, though, that's their strong suit. 10 starters back from last year. Preseason Mountain West Player of the Year, Easton Gibbs, a linebacker, number 28. He's really solid. Wyatt Eckler, a safety, is very, very good as well. And they've got, like, their linebacking core is very stout. Their defensive front is very stout. They haven't given up 100 yards rushing in either of their first 2 games.
That's impressive.
Yeah, against Portland State, not a big deal. Against Texas Tech, a big deal.
Right.
So their run defense, and Texas hasn't been great at consistently running the football through these 2 games. So it'll be a little bit of a test. I know it's Wyoming, but their run defense has been stout to this point. Their defensive front has been pretty solid. So, their defense is the strong suit, but they are susceptible in the secondary. And then offensively, they want to run the football. So, every David going up against Goliath, you want to get an early lead so you can control the football and establish your run game to keep the other team's offense on the sideline. Wyoming is the exact same way. Like Jalen Milroe, they don't want their quarterback being a pocket passer. If that happens, if Texas can get a big lead and turn Peasley into that type of guy, then this could be a short night for Wyoming.
Right. And, of course, Texas trying to go 3-0 for the first time since 2012, which wild to think about, gentlemen. Like, even again, this goes back to rat poison and making sure, this team is prepared, because if you guys remember the second year under Charlie Strong, they beat Notre Dame at home, the huge game in overtime, and we're like, okay, here we go. I think they lose like either the week after to Cal. Is that right? In Cal. And so there goes that. And so to think that this team hasn't gone 3-0 and has the opportunity to go into Red River undefeated for the first time in 11 years is insane to think about. But Texas first opportunity, an opportunity to go 3-0 for the first time since 2012. Gentlemen, any final thoughts on the game? Tim, what you got? Any final thoughts?
No, again, like I stated, and this is going to be my thing for the rest of the year, man, is this. You got to be consistent. You have to stay consistent. You have to be aggressive throughout those 4 quarters of the game. You can't come out blazing and go stale in the second half. That's no longer a thing, right? That can no longer happen. You have to be able to come out and continue where you left off, because again, we know, and this has been a thing. This has been a Stark thing hey, we know you can get out there. We know you can run with the best of them when it comes to coaching and strategizing that first half. It needs to continue on throughout the remainder of the game. That's going to be my running thing for the rest of the year, is being consistent throughout 4 quarters of the game.
Yeah. BK, any final thoughts?
No, I like that. That's really well said. Just I want stress free on Saturday. Send a
You want
message.
to sit back and eat a hot dog during halftime. You know what I mean?
Send another message, right? Last week was a message that this year's different. Send another message that this year is different. And you do that by just taking care of business on Saturday night.
Send another message. I like that. I like that a lot.
Well, gentlemen, it's been really, really fun. Before we get out of here, BK, one more time, why don't you let everyone know where they can find you on the interwebs and over the wavelengths.
Yeah, appreciate that. TexasSportsUnfiltered.com or YouTube search Texas Sports Unfiltered, and make sure you download the free Texas Sports Unfiltered app. Live and local, 8 to 5. We've got a pregame show before every game. We've got a postgame show after every game. And we're getting close to 5,000 subscribers. When we get there, we're going to have a massive giveaway, which you guys can obviously be a part of too, giving away some really, really cool prizes. So check us out. Obviously, give these guys some love. Make sure you're subscribed to them and follow them on Twitter, because these dudes are great people, and you guys both know your stuff. So I appreciate you guys giving me this platform, this opportunity to hang out with y'all for a little bit, and obviously to plug what I've got going on, man. It means a lot.
Absolutely. Tim, why don't you tell the people where they can find you?
You can find me at Tim Wayne on all social media. I do majority of my social media on Twitter, so feel free to talk whatever, Texas football in general, life, whatever, games. I'm all for it. Just hit me up at Tim Wayne. It's all one word, so you don't have to worry about any spaces or anything like that.
Awesome. And of course, you can find me at the Uncle Gandhi, UNGHANDI. I also at LH Fan Battle. This is a Fan Battle Twitter account, so if you're not in for the smoke, don't come in the house.
Don't come. Don't come. I'm really surprised we haven't got knocked yet. I gotta be waiting for
saying anything outrageous.
I mean, it's not outrageous. But listen, my man.
Push people to the edge, okay?
My man, I know for a fact. Listen, I'm more of the level-headed guy. This guy right here talks a lot of shit.
I'm good at it too.
I can see that.
It gets the
He's
people
really good at it.
Shoot.
He's really good at it. But no, yeah, if any point in time you guys want to reach out to us, we'll definitely get back at you. We're not snobs. We definitely like talking sports, so feel free to get at any one of us.
Absolutely. You can also find me on Tuesdays at the Horseshoe Mob podcast, and obviously Sundays at the AFC South Fan Battle podcast as well. And again, of course, please visit us, fanbattlesports.com. We have not written an article on there yet, Tim, and so we need to probably collaborate and get something out there. There's a lot of stuff going on in Longhorn Nation on the 40 acres, so we definitely need to get something on there. But hey, until then, my name's Tim. My name's not Tim. My name's Harish. That's my guy, Tim. BK, thanks for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Y'all have a good one. Peace.
Go home. Touchdown like the end zone. When the circle turn to my home.